Good morning, everybody. Apologies for the 1-minute delay in starting. The kettle had boiled and I just had to fill my teapot. I'm sure you'll all understand, very important to keep hydrated on such a hot day. I hope everyone is well and enjoying the hot weather. My name is Tamsin Slatter and I am the UK Director of Customer Success for Vectorworks. And I'm delighted to be here to introduce our partner Jonathan Reeves for another of his amazing technique webinars.
Good morning, everybody.
So, Jonathan.
Good morning.
So,
Good morning,
Jonathan
everybody.
is one of our. Oh, there's a slight delay in our audio. So I'll stop talking, Jonathan, and I'll hand straight over to you, and then you can welcome everybody.
I will get started. Thank you, Tamsin. Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm talking to my YouTube microphone here and see me briefly. Thank you very much for joining us again on this webinar. This is actually, I think, the third one I've done on the lockdown webinar series, which has been fantastic. I'm really looking forward to today's one. I'm going to do something a little bit different today, and I'm going to do quite a bit of sort of live demonstration. So let's hope that all that goes well. And we'll definitely sort of pause for some questions as we go through as well. Looks like we've kind of got quite a few attendees joining, and we've still got a few people turning up as we go. So we'll kind of make a bit of a soft start. And if it's okay, I will just introduce myself to begin with, and then we'll kind of run through into the webinar itself in a moment. So I think I might stop sharing my webcam at this stage and just share my main screen. Let's stop sharing my webcam. I'll pop that back on later. Good. Okay, so make, manage and maximize your Vectorworks libraries by me, Jonathan Reeves. So I thought today I would actually present live in Vectorworks to show you what a great presentation tool Vectorworks is itself. So I'm going to start off with a couple of little tips here. You can see I've got a few slides in Vectorworks itself before we get started. I'm going to go into black background mode. And actually, if you're not aware of all these buttons, if you do look at your screen and you don't see as many buttons as I've got, there's a couple of little tips I would definitely like to just give you at the start. Make sure you click on these two tiny little arrows up here. They're absolutely tiny, but they reveal lots of very, very useful options that you will definitely need to use later. And some of these things like show detail and things like auto join walls, pretty essential, as are things like the clip cube as well. But this is one of those options that you'll find in the little tool mode options here. I'd also recommend you click on the top one and just do things like show layer scale and also turn your render mode long on, just to kind of get a bit of few extra buttons. I'm also going to give you a nice little tip here. If you do want to go into what I call presentation mode ever with Vectorworks, then you can actually do a tip here called hide enabled palettes. It's a bit of an unwieldy shortcut, but you can just about learn this one. And this is fantastic because what it does, it clears all the palettes. So if you're just trying to present drawings to a client, as I'm doing to you now essentially, or do a 3D model walkthrough, that's a really nice mode to present in. Okay, so let's move on to our second slide. So the learning objectives of today's webinar are really to understand the benefits of using 2D and 3D libraries within this sort of architectural design industry process, really at conception, very much important at early stage, and also the communication and construction phases of the documentation process. I really want to show you how to recognize opportunities and understand your business, how to improve your business with more intelligent workflows using libraries. They're a really key part of my workflow. I'm a small practice, but bigger practices, I think they're essential. I'm going to try and demonstrate through some real world examples how to make, manage and maximize your Vectorworks libraries. And really, the ultimate aim of today is to motivate you and teach you as much as I possibly can. Let's move on to the next slide. I'm doing a little shortcut command down arrow just to swap through. So I'm just going to do a very brief introduction to myself. Some of you will have seen this. I will keep this quite brief. My name is Jonathan Reeves. I'm a practicing architect in the UK. Set my own firm up in 2000. So wow, 20 years ago. That's amazing. I've basically also been a Vectorworks user this whole time, and in fact, even a bit before when I was at university. So I have got a lot of experience with Vectorworks, and it's been phenomenal. I've seen such amazing development and changes, but the main thing is I've thoroughly enjoyed using it and kind of presenting and creating all my work with Vectorworks. I'm really proud to say that I'm a reseller, an authorised partner with Vectorworks UK, and I think it's okay to say I'm an author, having written a book on Vectorworks. I'm located in Loughborough, which is absolutely bang in the middle of the country, and I've got a lovely new office. Haven't been able to use it a huge amount yet, but at some point when the world gets back to relative normality, I do have a really fantastic training facility I'm hoping to do more training from. And if you're interested, I've got a few different websites, the architecture one, the Vectorworks one, and also I'm quite big into rendering software called Twinmotion, which you'll know if you followed my previous webinars. So, with my 20 years of experience, or a little bit more even, I started back on VECTORWORKS 4. So if anybody can beat that, please pop something in the Q&A, and I'll be give you a thumbs up. VECTORWORKS 4 was the precursor to Vectorworks years ago. I have witnessed huge growth, both as a reseller, as a user, and also beta tester. And I kind of enjoy using Vectorworks. So I try and use it daily. Over the years, though, my real passion has been teaching Vectorworks, and I must have worked with over 400 companies now, and probably even more individuals by now. I wrote a book back in 2015, Innovative Vectors BIM, which was quite popular. I kind of feel like maybe there's another book brewing at some point soon. And this still actually is quite a nice little kind of enjoyable book to have a look at. A little bit outdated now, but lots of relevant stuff still. One thing that I have been doing a lot recently is developing my YouTube channel, and I'm really proud to say I've now succeeded 5,000 subscribers, on a bit more than that now. And there's over, I think, 100 videos on Vectorworks, a few on Twinmotion, but mainly Vectorworks here. So please come and join and subscribe and have a look at the channel. Good, okay, so let's get into the webinar itself. Now, in my experience as a teacher over the years, I've always witnessed that one element that Vectorworks has, which is absolutely superb, but really kind of not exploited to its full, is the resource manager. So I think Tamsin's got a little poll, actually. Is that right, Tamsin? You've got a little poll you might run.
I have indeed. So let's go for it. So I'm gonna fire off the first question now. And there you go. So the question is, do you really feel, if you look in your heart of hearts, that you have mastered the resource manager?
Oh, wow.
So if you pop your answer in.
We hadn't had many yeses up until, so you're definitely in the right place. Begin with, there were 0 yeses.
And there's some maybes though. There's some people hedging their bets with maybe.
Yeah, we've got a few maybes. Okay.
That's interesting.
Second more to vote. That is really interesting, isn't it?
And we've currently got an 82% turnout of the poll of the voters. So if you haven't voted.
Well, that's really interesting. So my intuition was correct. My observations over the years of teaching and training, that really not enough people have mastered the resource manager, hence why you're all here. So you're in the right place.
And I would concur with that with my own experience. I think, yes, that's, and it's interesting. I think, it's such an important subject. And I think I actually think the problem is people overthink it. They think, they just think it's far more complicated than it actually is. So it'd be great to really get to grips with it today.
Absolutely.
Okay, I will close the poll.
Great.
Would you like the next
We've got
question?
a few more. Yeah, we've got another question. Are you good to pop that one back on as well? I'll share my cam while we're doing that.
Okay, so yeah, so the results of that one, let me just share those. So 6% think they've mastered it.
Amazing.
Nearly 60% no, and a little bit of a doubt. 34%.
Tell you what then,
so
I'll get cooking and we'll do the second question in a moment when it's a bit more relevant, if that's okay, Tamsin. All right?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Very good.
Okay.
So let's get back to it. So we're gonna look at the resource manager. We're gonna talk about some of the libraries that actually ship with Vectorworks and make you aware of what you actually got already. You may not be aware, there's some amazing libraries here. What we're really going to do though is drill down to some of the more advanced features of the resource manager, things like searching and tagging and things like favorite files. Now this is a really important element of my workflow, and I hope it will become part of yours. I think towards the end of the talk, Tamsin's going to talk a little bit about workgroup folders and setting up user libraries. That's really useful for bigger practices as well.
Yeah, for those who need to share resources
That's it.
amongst a team. Yeah.
Amongst the team. Excellent. Okay, so this is where we're going to get cracking. We're going to introduce the resource manager. Let's talk about the native Vectorworks and service select libraries, and we'll have another question, I think, in a moment once we get into that. Then we're going to get onto the bulk of the talk, where I'm really going to show you how to prepare your own types of libraries. And I think I'll start off with hatching and image fills, the nice sort of fairly lightweight 2D stuff. Then I'm going to drill down into 2D symbols and 2D hybrid 3D symbols. Now, this is quite an interesting element. I've got a nice little workflow here. I'll probably touch on RenderWorks textures. And something that I've found that is really popular is I've got a great little kind of solution on how to build things like detail libraries of fully fledged architectural details. Then we're going to kind of get onto more of the BIM side of things and talk about wall libraries, slabs and roofs. And finally, sort of finish off a bit more with, object styles, which are amazing. And then, as I say, we're just going to finish off any benefits of the resource manager, probably have some questions halfway through, and then Tamsin will join us to talk about how to share those libraries as well. Fantastic. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to go onto my untitled file. I think I better bring my palettes back so I can actually operate Vectorworks now with my wonderful little shortcut there. And I think I'll switch out of dark mode for a second. Okay, so where do we get started? Well, the resource manager lives up in the palettes menu. And I would encourage you, if you don't know any keyboard shortcuts, this has absolutely got to be one of your top three, I'd say. So, rather than always having to go up here and bring up the resource manager, just use Command R on the Mac or Control R on the PC. The nice thing with the resource manager is it will always pop up where you last left it. Now, it can be docked, but my solution is I never ever dock it. I always park it on my other screen if I have one, which is always a nice workflow, because then you can have all your resources on the other screen and drag and drop them in. But if you dock it, I do find that it just ends up being kind of too small to be really useful. Would you agree with that, Tamsin? It sort of just needs to float really and have a bit of breathing space, doesn't it?
Definitely. And I think the fact that it will auto hide is just such a useful feature. And I often see, if I've been training people, that they will have turned it off because they just think it's taking up too much space. But just leave it there, and you can either hover over it, or some will get into the habit of just using Command R to close it and open it when they need it. But yes,
I agree. No, absolutely. The auto hiding is fab. Auto hiding is great. I personally am a Command R guy. I kind of like to pop it up when I need it and get rid of it when I don't, or stick it on the other screen. So that's cool. Now, what I find is some people fall at the very first hurdle, in that when they first open the resource manager on their computer, their brand new shiny copy of Vectorworks, sometimes it looks a bit like this, and really they don't really sort of see a lot in there. So, oh well, I'll leave that. I don't really know what it does. Now, this is falling at the first hurdle. So what we need to do here is you can either click and slide out this panel. In fact, you just need to enable it from here. And actually, even if it is enabled, these side panels, they can be minimized. So just watch out for that. You must click on these dots and open up the side panel. Can you see? So even if they're enabled, they may well be hidden. And then the final one actually is a little bit sneaky, is this one here at the top, so the data section. So this is really the optimum setup for the resource manager. A small side preview window, a large big preview window in the middle, and then a 3D one and a data one. That's a good little setup. So let's kind of look at some resources itself. Now, if we click and start on these 3 buttons, or 5 buttons up here, what you can see here is the button to enable the Vectorworks library. So when you click this button, suddenly the Vectorworks libraries become revealed. Okay, and we'll kind of tunnel into those in a minute. This one is the workgroup libraries, which I'm not personally using as a standalone sort of workstation, or the user libraries. I'm not using those. Tamsin will talk about those. I'm going to use my favorites. So favorites are where I keep all my goodies. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And if you're a Vectorworks Service Select member, you can just about see me logged in as Jonathan Reeves at the top there. I can click onto my Vectorworks service select libraries, and these are great. These are all stored sort of online as well. So before you even kind of start using the resource manager, those are the critical things. Get it set up to be usable. Make sure that you have your side panels and previews all working properly. And then thirdly, just understand what these buttons here do, just so you're kind of aware where the libraries are. So I'm going to take a quick look through some of the existing libraries, and I'd really encourage you to do this. If you've never looked in any of them, let's leave the default libraries. Those are the ones that actually ship with Vectorworks that get pre-installed. So these are all natively on your hard drive. If you click onto the library, you'll see there's no cloud icon. They're just right there for you. Now, if you go down a bit further, we'll talk about object styles later. If you go, say, to the architectural libraries, you'll see that with some of these, they have a cloud icon on. So what that means is they're actually not stored locally on your hard drive. They're on the cloud, but there's like a little preview of them, really. And when you're ready for them, you can click on them and download them. Now, if you do want to import a particular library, if there's one that you particularly would like the look of, you can see I've done that on a few of these. Let's say I want this particular library, I can right click and I can download and install. And it will take a second or so. It's only 700K, that library, so I'll go ahead. So that will basically install it, and the cloud icon has been removed now. And what that means is the next time I access this library, it will be a few seconds faster because it won't actually have to download itself every time I access the content. So what I would encourage you to do is just scroll through some of these libraries. I mean, you know, if you're after any timber work profiles, like for skirtings or covings, anything like that, and these can all be extruded along a path to make wonderful 3D skirtings and sort of coving profiles. You know, what a fantastic file. So take a look at some of the libraries that are there. Yeah, I think in a minute, our question will involve asking you, how really aware are you of all of these libraries that ship? Look at these wonderful sunshades and so on. So I think the comment I would make about the libraries is they're fantastic. You've got to be aware of what's there in order to know even if it's worth looking. And if you're not sure, then what you should actually do is use the wonderful search facility. So let's say there's something that I'm looking for in my project, like, I don't know, a Velux window is always something I always seem to be after for every project I do. So I just simply go in, if I type the word Velux, if I could spell it right, Velux, I hit return, and I just let Vectorworks do its searching. And essentially what it will do is search all the installed libraries, all the, should we say, cloud libraries, and if the Vectorworks Service Select button is enabled, it will also search those libraries as well, plus my favorites. So sometimes the searches take a bit longer depending on which sort of groups of files you've got enabled here. If you do want to, you can see it's found a wonderful library of Velux roof lights. The last 10 searches are stored in the little icon here. So you can see the kind of things I've been searching for. Car, bed, sink. You know, we're always after the same things when we do a project. If we're doing a residential project, we always need a bed or a car somewhere. So again, if I click bed, rather than having to go to specific libraries or search for those, you know, individual libraries, I can essentially access all the Vectorworks libraries. And look at that, there is a lot of stuff. Wonderful. Now, if there's a particular bed you like the look of, you can go through, and what's really nice is now you get quite a large preview, which is nice. You can see very clearly, and if there's any data in the object, it will display down here. Now this data really here is all about tagging. Okay, so this is something that you can also use to search for your libraries by either adding and creating your own tags, I'll show you that later, or just sort of understanding how tagging works. So that means if I did type bed, it comes up, but if I type furniture or residential bedroom, these tags will show this object. Another great little tip is sometimes you want to know, well, where is this library? Okay, so if you right click, we can actually do something called select resource location. When we do this, basically what that will do is Vectorworks on the left side will highlight this particular library now. And you can see that this is definitely one that I've already downloaded and installed. So because the cloud icon isn't there. And now that it is downloaded and installed, if I really like the look of this library and I think I'll use this quite frequently, which I think I probably would, I can add it as a selected file to my favorite files. This is a really nice thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you now. Now, when I add it as a favorite file, I can either add it at what they call the root level, which is just the top level, or I can actually create a subfolder for it. Here I've already got some of my own subfolders. So what I think I'll do is I'll just create another little folder for Vectorworks Libraries, and I'll click OK. And that will take a second and save that into that folder. So now, if I'm looking, if I can remember cleverly enough, I can go straight to my favorites, straight to my Vectorworks libraries, and there is that particular library. So this is a really nice workflow. You can take any of the libraries either from the Service Select, which are all available to Vectorworks Service Select members. And I'm always amazed by these, Tamsin. Whenever I look through them, there's some new stuff in here. You know, if you're doing a school project,
it's updated quite regularly.
It's fab. Because it's on the cloud, it just gets updated. And you occasionally see that little download and update your libraries message when you fire your Vectorworks up, don't you?
Yes, and actually that's an interesting point, because I think quite often people will say, oh, but it's going to take hours to download everything.
No,
And it's
really
not
fast.
actually downloading everything. What it's doing is it's updating its links to that information. It's updating its catalog, if you like, without physically replacing everything on your hard drive. So it really doesn't take as long as it looks like it might.
It's almost like it's almost like an alias, isn't it? It's like a shadow. It's like a preview, really. And the icon isn't actually.
It is.
You know, when you double click on the icon, let me do one. Let's go and choose this cool rug. You click on it, and then it will take a second to download, depending on your internet speed. And then, you know, there it is. Let's have a quick look. It's obviously a nice 3D one. Oh, look at that. So, you know, if you're doing kind of any schoolwork, there's some ready-made stuff here ready to go. So, you know, you may not have realized that this was here. So, yeah, I think the
we
biggest
just had a comment, actually. I've just had a comment on the question saying that it does take quite a long time where this particular person works, is Flavio. So sorry to hear that, Flavio.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
check it out though.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's a good point. Actually, I forgot to mention, please do pop your questions in the question panel. I'm keeping an eye on those, and I'll get back to you while Jonathan's talking.
Thanks, Tamsin. You know, look, there's an incredible range of stuff here. So all I'm saying is, before you do anything else, before you go off to do the other things I'll be showing you to do, such as going off to the SketchUp warehouse to find a tap or find a bit of furniture to import and process and make into a 3D symbol, you know, before you do any of that, just look and see if there's a Vectorworks native object that you can use. The better is there may well be. So yeah, I think that's the biggest message. Just be aware. And there's things for every industry. You know, we've got lots of fantastic things for Spotlight users, and lots of brilliant things for the landscape sort of designers using Vectorworks Landmark as well. Let's have a quick look in here. You can see really, really nice stuff. In fact, there's even some sort of ready-made sort of big symbols and things like that. Okay.
Yeah,
I was doing a gym for a client the other day, and you know, I wanted some gym equipment, so I just thought, oh, just ask the question, just see. Typed in the word gym, and it found one that I wasn't aware of. But you know, a whole library of gym equipment that I could create a home gym for the client. There it is. All this gym equipment here. So all I needed to do was right-click, select the resource location. That found the fitness library for me, and then I've just downloaded it, so I've got it permanently now. Excellent. So actually, that's probably a good time for one of our other questions, Tamsin. I think we had one about the awareness of the libraries and the service select.
Okay, so let's go for that.
Put my camera back on for a second.
So are you fully aware of the, well, were you perhaps fully aware of the range of libraries that install with the Vectorworks software?
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so quite a few people are aware, which is good. But a third weren't.
Yeah. Still 86% turnout at the polls.
That's about normal, isn't it? For government
With
elections,
anybody
let
else.
alone ours. We got
Yeah,
89 now.
that's pretty good, actually. It's pretty good. Yeah. So, okay, I will close the poll and share the results. So, a lot of you were, which is good
Good.
news. But possibly, given the answers to the questions before, not really aware of how to actually get the best use out of them and you know, get access to them.
Indeed. Fantastic. Okay, that's good.
Do you want me to ask the next one then about the service select?
Yes, I think that's a good time. Why not?
Okay. Just have a slurp of my tea.
Of course, we are asking this at the wrong time because everybody's aware now. They've just been watching me on the webinar.
Exactly. They
We should
have,
have said,
yeah.
were
So
you aware before?
Were you aware? Yes.
Excellent. I'm really glad everyone is aware now. That's fantastic. We have achieved part of our goal.
Yes. Yeah, that's really good.
That's
so,
good. Okay,
yeah.
fantastic.
But yeah, good. A big 30% not aware of the extra stuff that you get as a service select member.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, good. Let's get back to it then.
Okay.
All right, good. Okay, so we've kind of talked a little bit about how to access the existing content. That's not really why you're here, I sense. So I really want to kind of get into how to create your own libraries, and that's where I want to kind of really get started. So there'll be a few other features of the resource manager I'm going to come back to as well as we do this. Okay, so I'm going to go to my untitled file, and you can see there's absolutely nothing in here apart from that rug I brought in, which I will now delete. Let's get rid of that resource. So we've got a fresh file. So when I kind of first started creating libraries, what I tend to do myself is I like to create them during projects, but I also quite like to actually kind of, you know, rigorously spend a bit of time actually kind of just going through and creating packs of libraries. So I've developed some various sort of library packs, and I think, as I said, I was promising to give a few away. This is one of the free giveaways. So the people pack. And how does this work? You can see there's absolutely tons of people in here, and they're all quite nicely processed. And if I want to, one of the lovely things about favorite files is you can right click and click open. So I'm just going to click and open this file for a second. And I just really want to show you how a library file, in my view, looks. Okay, well, I've got a little kind of sheet on there with a few different sort of sheet layers, but these are the actual design layers where the symbols themselves appear. Now, the good thing is they're all really nicely organized, i.e. when you look at the classes, it's a consistent class, symbols, height, and people. Okay, so the good thing with that is if I wanted to, I could right click and edit the graphics of that class. And let's go and just make them white. If I click OK, then all of the people on all those layers will now change to that particular color, because I'm doing it through class. And when I drop those people into my next project, instead of them bringing in some weird and wonderful classes with them, you know, they're going to consistently bring through those correct classes. And, you know, I don't have to remember which project I did them in previously. They're always available. One thing that I really like doing actually is just sort of, let's go for like a dark color and maybe a sort of 50% opacity. And that's quite a nice way just to kind of, if you put them in front of buildings, then you'll get a semi-transparency. Just sort of draw something behind. Let me send that to the back. And you can see, you know, if you actually draw, let's just pop a hatch into there, you can see the people actually kind of will sit in front, or they would actually if I was doing it on the correct layer. Okay, so people libraries and things like vehicle libraries, these are great. And basically I can, if I want to, I can just pop in here and, you know, I can either go in and copy and paste. So copy, let's shut that file down now. And then into my drawing. So let's just close that file down. And then I can copy and paste them in, and that's fine. It brings through the relevant classes and so on. Or of course, if I want to, I can just simply go and do the old drag and drop sort of direct import, which is fine. Or double click to bring them in as well. So lots of different methods of actually bringing them in. You can actually select a bunch of them and right click and import. Now what that will do is simply bring them into the file, but not actually place them onto the drawing. So that's one of the methods that you can use. Open the file, copy and paste, or just drag and drop them in, or right click and import them ready for use. Okay, good. So let's get rid of those for a second. So I want to really kind of talk a bit about hatching to begin with. I thought it would be good to sort of do it in this order: hatches, images, VectorWorks textures, symbols and plugins, and then the BIM stuff. So let's talk about hatching for a second. This is something that I always get asked about. I'm always amazed when people say, have you got any good hatches? I think is the question. Have you had that, Tamsin? So let's go for this file here. In the folders, you can see I've got some quite nice little folders, symbol folders, or hatch folders rather, with some timber hatches, some stone hatches, and some brick and block hatches. And again, if I just right click and open and show you the file briefly, you'll understand how I've structured my own file. And this might give you some, some sort of tips on how to create your own. I always quite like just doing a little kind of front cover, but the design layers themselves, here they are. Now, one really, really nice tip I can give you on hatching is sometimes what I'd like to do is say to leave yourself a little bit of space for a few spares. That's what I've done in my libraries here. So let's say I really like the look of this hatch here, and I want to use it here, but it's I want a different rotation. So the first tool that I'm going to use is my eyedropper tool to pick up the hatch and drop it down. I'd normally do this with shortcuts, but I'm trying not to today. And I'll just drop that down there. Now, this is a tool that I really love, and it's one that I do find a lot of clients don't know. It's called the attribute mapping tool. My personal shortcut on my own workspace is A for attribute mapping, which makes a lot of sense. Now, what the attribute mapping tool does is fantastic. It enables you not only to set the hatch out, but actually, if you want to rotate it, and really importantly, to scale it as well. So scaling and rotating hatches, that kind of thing. Let me just do that again. So I'm going to use my shortcut this time, E for eyedropper on my workspace, and drop that into there. Then I'm going to click A for attribute mapping, scale it down by a factor of 0.5, and going to rotate that round to vertical. So all of that is something that I'm really kind of really slick and easy. Now it can be done through this teeny little button here, but it's a lot more intuitive just to actually do it on screen, I think. Now, the second tip I would give you is if you want to, this is actually not a new hatch. This is a rotated scaled version of the other one. So it's blue. That's what the blue sort of icon means there. If I want to store this away for future use, what I can do is two things. I can right click, and firstly, I can locate it in the resource manager. That's what I'm going to do. So that's now located the original hatch. You can see it's not the rotated one, it's the original one. Now what I can do, let's close that down again, is right click and new hatch from mapped hatch. So this is where I actually get to rename it or give it a new name. Let's call this vertical. By the way, you can spell check if you make spelling mistakes in there. So basically that is now, if I right click and find it now, it's not blue anymore. You'll see now I can locate it, and here is now the altered one. So this is really, really cool. And of course, the deeper hatch editing itself is all dealt with by the edit dialog. And this isn't really something I'm going to get into today. Now, all I can say is you don't want to be making hatches yourself. Imagine that, there's over 200 levels, I think, in this particular hatch. So it's not something you need to make, but you basically might want to do some very basic adjustments here, such as have a colored fill. And while I'm here, I'm just going to touch on something really nice. You can see I've got all my things like Farrow ball colors and RAL colors. So this is a great little tip. If you're not sure where these are, all you need to do here is click onto the Manage Color Palettes icon. And, the amount of interior designers I've shown who they absolutely love, Farrow ball and all the RAL colors, those kind of things as well. It's good, Tamsin, isn't it? All the color handling is wonderful.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful, yeah. And again, just I do feel despair for people when I open up, they'll come for training and have a look and realize they're just using the very, very basic library without exploring. While we're talking, Jonathan, a
Sure.
question has come in talking about scaling library
Okay.
parts, and I
Yeah.
wonder, are you with hatches? Are you going to talk about page-based and world-based, or
I can
were
do.
you not
Yeah.
planning to?
Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
can do.
okay.
So
I think that
let's
might
have a
be
look.
worth
So what?
touching on, or I could just type it. Fine.
Well, essentially, you've got two types of things like image and particularly hatches. Page-based are, yeah, world-based and page-based. Page-based are one-to-one. Is that correct, Tamsin? And the world-based are to scale.
So yeah, basically. So I would use a world-based hatch. If you look at the one on your screen there, where you've got the paving slabs, stone
Yeah,
9, I can just see the edge of it.
world-based. Yeah,
That would be a world-based, because it's actually pavers at their real world size. And so if you use that in your drawing and you created a viewport of that at 1 to 10 and another viewport showing it at 1 to 50, you would still want
yeah,
the pavers to be measuring their actual real world size.
that's right.
Whereas if you had something like a pattern that's showing a section through concrete, for example, it doesn't matter what scale your viewport is, you'd always want that to look the same. You wouldn't
That's
want it
right.
to get denser or spread so far apart that you can't see it. So that would be a page-based hatch.
When you use a world-based hatch, you can clearly see. I mean, I'm not going to get into this. This is a one that is always a complicated one to explain, how to create your hatches from scratch. But as I say, you really don't need to. You just need to acquire the hatches and then use them. But you can see all the numbers in here, like the repeat lengths and the start lengths. They're real world numbers, like sort of real modules. Well, page-based are, as Tamsin says, one-to-one, so they don't get denser in scale. So sometimes they are appropriate. I will say though, there is a nice little feature that you can use. So for example, let me go onto a sheet layer. I've got my front cover, got some viewports here. I'll just show you this little feature here. You can go to advanced properties, and so it's right, can you actually scale those, or is that only going to work if they
Yes,
are
you can.
page-based hatches? Can scale,
No,
you
that
can
will. I
scale,
think that will do all of the. You can
yeah,
scale things as you wish, but yeah,
that's
I
it.
would basically. So you create page-based hatches based on the size that you would want them to print. So if
In
you
the real
say
world.
something is a 4mm line, then it will
Yeah,
print 4mm regardless of the scale of your viewport. Whereas if you
yeah, that's a
made
good
it
point.
600mm in world-based, it will always measure 600 at the scale of the viewport. So
These are,
600 at
because
1
these
to
are sort of
50.
very detailed timber hatches, these are at 1:5
Yeah.
scale. So these are the
Okay.
kind of things that will look crazy at 1:100 scale. They'd just be black. So you need to be able to sort of use sort of either different scales or be able to scale them up or use page base for those. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that
And the same
hopefully
applies with
covers.
symbols. We don't need to go into that in that much detail, but the same applies. You can
Yes.
set a symbol to be a world-based. So if you had an item of furniture, for example, that would be
Yeah.
world-based. If it was something like a symbol that you're going to put on a map that shows where the bus stop is, you might want that to be page-based, because you might show that map at 1 to 2,500, and you might show
That's
an
it.
element of it at 1 to 50, but you'd still want that map, that bus stop symbol, to be the same size.
Absolutely. So, what's really nice about the way you use these, it's very similar to before when I'm doing my drafting and my projects. I can just pop open my resource manager. I can quickly navigate to my favorite, to the appropriate library, and drag and drop or double click to bring my hatching in. Then I can click the attribute tool and reset should we say the origin, if I want to, just to snap it nicely there. Maybe I want to scale those, twice as big, massive paving tiles, and maybe I want to rotate them around. So all of those things are really, really fast and intuitive. I didn't need to go around the houses opening up 4 or 5 projects to find where was that last time I did that particular paving. And what's really cool is I can right click, I can now make a new hatch. Now, when I create that new hatch, it will create in the drawing I'm in. But here's a really, really nice little tip. Even without opening up and closing the other file, if I do want to, and this applies to all resources, and it's a wonderful feature, I can actually export. So I can click export, and that enables me to export it to one of the libraries, even if that library wasn't a favorite or open, because I could browse to it. So there's no excuse really for not being organized and putting things into the appropriate library. As I say, it doesn't actually put it on the page, but it will put it as a resource into that document. So the next time I go to that file, you know, I would expect to see that permanently there. So that's really cool. In fact, it's there twice now. That's a nice little tip. Make sure you do that. Can you keep building? The libraries are never ending. You never stop building them. The key thing is to start with a decent structure and so on. Okay, good.
Agreed.
So I think that's okay on hatches. I just wanted to talk very briefly about images and then get on to the more interesting elements. So let's just do this. So one thing, as well as hatches, is to use image fills. So to do this, what I'm going to actually do is start from scratch and create a resource. So if you ever want to create a resource from scratch, you can click on the button here, or my favorite way is just double click in this white space down here, and that will bring up the create resource dialog. So I'm going to go for a new image resource, not a texture, but an image. And basically when I do that, you can see I've already pre-prepared a few files here. So I've got some nice sort of concrete or some decking. I like the look of that. That's cool, that cladding. So I'm going to double click to import this one. And there's a couple of great little tips with images in Vectorworks I can give you. The first thing is if the image itself is very large, maybe this is a bit too big, it's quite a big file size, I can actually squish it down to something a bit more reasonable before I actually bring it in. So that's really got the file size down. So we don't have this problem with very large images. So that's kind of, yeah, 4K rather than 16. The second thing that I can do, let me just click and go ahead and actually drop that in. So there it is. It's obviously quite dense. So let's kind of click and scale it up. Yeah, that looks really, really cool. If I was doing like a 2D elevation, 2D drawing, you know, this might be something that I would want to sort of use just to kind of create a nice kind of panel of render or timber or that kind of thing. Ooh. Just kind of quickly duplicating a window here. And I'm just going to quickly show you the gradient tool as well. It's a shame it always starts on the orange one. Then maybe that's something I should sort out. You will find there's a nice little gradient library, and I'm forever going to this one actually for my glass. Now I use my attribute mapping tool just to kind of get a nice little window in there. Not really relevant to today's talk, but I'm just going to really quickly show you another benefit of Vectorworks is the ability to not only handle color well, but actually handle opacity in a really, really cool way. So things like shadows and stuff like that. So, you know, in a few seconds, I've made what I think looks quite attractive as a little sort of window element there. And there we go, that's cool. Now, the great thing is if I was kind of using this on a project, this is just 2D drafting, what I would want to do is make that into a symbol. So I'll leave that one just for a second. I'll drag that one off. Right click. On my workspace, what I've done is set up so you can create symbols in my workspace. But otherwise, you go to the Modify menu, Create Symbol. Window 1. Now, the good thing with symbols is I can duplicate them. I'm going to drag off a copy a certain distance here. And let's say I want it at 2500. I'm going to hold down the Alt key so it moves and copies. And when I do Command D, it just keeps going. Now, the great thing with symbols, as you know, is a simple sort of case of editing one of them. Let's say we end up with a little bar in the middle, and they will all change. Okay. We can also scale symbols as well. So if I do scale that symbol, I might be able to kind of scale it a little bit here. Okay, that's cool. But the difference is you've got to be a bit careful because it will be actually scaling all of the other elements as well. So if you scale it too much, it looks silly. So a much better way around that is to use the resource editing tool, so the reshape tool, and actually just kind of reshape before you kind of create the symbols itself. Okay, good. So really, we were just talking about image fills. I got a bit distracted with talking about 2D window symbols, but I'm hoping that this sort of enables you to understand the benefit of even 2D graphics. A really cool feature that I was just going to show you was edit image effects, and this applies to 2D image fills and RenderWorks textures. So what's really nice is, as well as editing the size, we can actually edit the image effects. And what this allows me to do, it's almost like a mini version of Photoshop. It's really, really cool. Just sort of tone down the saturation and sort of just adjust the sharpness and various sort of, you know, tones of that timber. So even that one image, once adjusted, will basically, let's drag and drop that into there again. You can see, enable me to get a pretty infinite variety of image fills. So I would agree, as well as hatching, 2D image fills are a really, really nice thing to do. And we've already said about using your things like your people libraries just to kind of enhance those drawings. And don't forget to use things like the opacity functions as well. Good. Do we have any relevant questions, Samson, or should I carry on to the next bit? I'll carry on. Good. Okay. So after hatching and images, I want to just touch on 3D textures for a second. Now, to do this, I'm going to go to my ready-made library. So I'm going to go to my favorites. I'm going to open up my 3D libraries here. And this is, again, another one of the sample files. I'm happy to give this away for free. If you visit my website, it's on there for free for you. I'm just going to go through. And what this is basically a really great way to build up a palette of your own favorite architectural materials. So you can see I've made a good start for you, but I haven't finished. I've left you lots of blank space. So let's go live and have a look at how this is done. I'm just going to double click onto that design there. And it will just take a second while the geometry renders and it just opens up. It takes a second to open. It is quite a big file. So, you know, you've got to be careful with big files. I would warn you, when they get too large, they can slow down the resource manager a little bit. So just be careful with that. So sometimes I don't always have it open. I keep it and I open it as I require it. Now, the really nice thing is here, what I can do is I can click onto these sort of cubes and they're ready-made with some textures. And what you'll notice when I copy them through, let's just get a couple more here. So often when I'm starting a project, what I do is I will copy them. And just to prove no magic's required, I'll go to a new file where there's absolutely nothing at all. And what's really lovely about Vectorworks is it is very, very clever in the way it handles resources. So just let this new file pop up for a second. You can see at the moment, Command R, there's absolutely nothing in the file. And there's also no classes at all. Okay, so as soon as I paste in those cubes, I can now actually immediately, there they are, but I can immediately delete them. What it will have done is brought through the relevant classes that I need for my project, and you will see it's brought through the relevant resources. So this is really nice now. You know, when I'm building my 3D model, let's go ahead, model extrude, let's extrude that up, 2 meters, pop it into 3D. All I need to do to kind of assign my classes is essentially go to my navigation manager, right click, and I like to do it this way, assign to selection, because what that actually does, it puts the object into the relevant class and it assigns the relevant texture to it. So this is a good practice for 3D modeling, and that you can change the class texture and then your entire model will change. Also, if you watched my RenderWorks webinar last time, you'll see I did a really clever little trick where we use something called class overrides in the viewports, where what you actually do is you simply edit the class, but not here, you edit it through the viewport, and you can override the material. So that means you can get various different options of what I call optioneering in terms of materiality. So this is a really cool way to create materials classes. Make sure that you just do it slightly rigorously, you know, go to the trouble of creating a class. Let's do it from scratch then. So first thing I need to do to create my texture is double click in the blank space. Let's go to the active file. I'm going to go to a RenderWorks texture, not an image. And this dialog pops up. And then I'm going to basically load in an image file. And let's have a look and see what selection we have. If I want to, by the way, I can actually reuse something that I've already imported. So I could actually reuse something already in the project. Let's go and import a fresh one. Again, I quite like those wood planks. Let's go for these ones this time. I'm going to bring the image in. I still have the wonderful image effects button here. So if I want to kind of boost up the saturation or tone it down a bit, you know, go for the muted colors look that everybody loves, I can do that. So this is a great little preset here. So I'm going to click OK. And the key here is you really want to set your cube to something meaningful. So personally, I make them at 2 meters. So 2 meters there, 2m for meters. And then I always start off by typing in the same there, 2m. And I kind of look at the timber texture and I see, well, how does it look on that 2 meter section? I think it's a bit dense, so let's say 1 meter. Click OK. Let's see how this looks. And then I can drag and drop to apply that material. And there it is. And it looks great. And the really lovely thing about it is with this fantastic image effects is that at any time I can edit that image and just go through, give it a little bit more saturation, click apply, and OK, off we go. So great little tip. So again, with your texture libraries, they are pretty infinite. Even though you might have one brick or one material, that can be an infinite number just by varying the tonality of those. But the biggest tip I can give you is just to bother, I mean, that's in the wrong place, but just to go through and actually make the class. Okay, and you can see that I've got a little preset where I just do new, and I call it text for texture. I'm trying to use the same syntax each time, so it hyphenates text hyphen timber. Okay, and as I say, then what I do once I've created the texture is I actually apply the texture through the class. And this is a really important step for me because the next project I do, this will actually save me quite a bit of time. So there it is there. Excellent. And then I put it in my file and store it away and save my file for next time. So hopefully that explains a little bit more about 3D RenderWorks textures for you. Tamsin, do we have any good relevant questions now, or shall I keep carrying on?
No, there's nothing at the moment. There's a few that have been coming in, but I've been answering them via text. So all is good at the moment.
Fantastic. Okay, let me shut this file down. As I say, these texture files are big. You can always keep an eye on the file size just by going file info. So once you get over 100 megabytes, you know, not a great idea to have too many of those sort of lying around in the background while you're working. I mean, you know, depending on your processor and your computer, it should be okay. But if anything, it's not going to speed it up, that's for sure. So try and sort of keep those fairly minimal. Okay, so my next little example of a resource is going to be 2D stroke 3D hybrid symbols. Now this is quite fun. So for those of you who have ever wanted some furniture that you haven't been able to find in the Vectorworks library or something a bit more specific. So what I've got here is, I'm just going to go to my libraries here and let's just navigate through to my folders. And you can see that I've got a couple of SketchUp files here. So these are things that I've downloaded from the SketchUp 3D warehouse. And, you know, great resource for lots of people. There's a ton of stuff on there, and obviously lots of manufacturers have their objects there. So what I'm going to do is simply drag and drop the SketchUp file into Vectorworks. That will start the process of importing. And when you do import, you've got to have the industry series to do this, not fundamentals. You can basically import as architectural objects, which I rarely do. It's nearly always meshes and polygons. And I do have the option to go into some custom settings as well. The most important bit though is to click options and make sure that you create RenderWorks textures for those materials. Let's click OK. So it'll take a second or so to import, depending on the complexity of the model and the file size that you're bringing in. Here we go, it's generating those objects now. Wonderful. So we have some little benches. Let's quick look at them in 3D. So I'm going to spin around. Yeah, they look pretty good, pretty detailed and quite contemporary. Now here's the tip. They don't look very good in 2D because they're, you know, clearly just a 3D symbol. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the scale to be something a little bit more appropriate, 1:10 scale. You'll see why in a second. And I'm going to essentially add a 2D part into this 3D symbol. Okay, so if I double click onto a 3D symbol, you're basically going to go into edit mode, or if you right click, you can edit the 2D or the 3D part. I want to go and edit the 2D part. Mine's set up to do that by a double click. When I go in, you can see at the moment, this is just really a shadow of the 3D model. So a fantastic feature here is you can right click and generate 2D from 3D. So rather than having to trace over this thing, I can basically create a hidden line wireframe diagram of my little 3D model of my bench. Again, depending on the complexity, it will take a second, but look at that, it's done a great job. There is the hidden line preview. That saved a lot of drafting. So what I'm going to do now is create a brand new class. And because it's something I'm creating, I'm going to type in JRA, and it's a symbol. So I'll type in symbol, and I'm also going to type in graphic. Okay, this is a graphical view. And when I set the materials here, maybe I'll just have a light gray on there. Okay, so that's now the graphical view. So when I come out of my symbol, whenever I'm looking in top plan view now, I will actually have a really nice 2D view of that bench, which looks great. And essentially I can put drop shadow and do all sorts of things. So these are the kind of things you want in your drawings. But behind the scenes, I've actually got a 3D model there. So this works fine for things like benches where they're not too complex. But when they're a lot more complex graphically, the hidden line process can be quite time consuming. So I want to show you a really cool little solution for really fancy stuff like sofas and things like that, really kind of detailed furniture. So basically for this, I'm going to go to this tool here on the visualization palette. And it's a really great little tool that's often not used that much, the render bitmap tool. Now, when you click the render bitmap tool, it immediately puts you into top view like a rendered view and in OpenGL. So what I can do, click onto the options for that tool. I can basically choose the rendering mode I would like. And this is cool because you can create artistic, like sketchy modes if you want more of a sketchy feel. But I'm going to go for a 400 dpi resolution here. And basically hold down the squiggle key between Shift and Z on the Mac, just so I can kind of create a little boundary around that object. Okay, now what's it done? Well, if I go back to top plan, what it's actually done is created a bitmap image of the piece of furniture. So this is cool. So what I can now do is cut that, double click back into my symbol and just paste in my 2D graphic. And with a bit of luck, I can just line that up. Let's just kind of get that into position. Excellent. Okay, now what I'm going to do is create another class. So I may as well duplicate this one to save a bit of time and then simply edit the name. And this is called render color, for example. Okay. So what happens now is when I come back out of my symbol, I've essentially got two really nice things that I can do. I can basically turn off the render color just to reveal, okay, yeah, I've missed a step, so that this happens. I didn't put this in the class, so I can either go through here and do it, or my favorite way is to not assign some action. Yes.
Jonathan, sorry to interrupt. I think your microphone has just gone a little dodgy. I don't know if it's just unplugged itself or.
It did. Is that better?
That's much better. That's much
better.
Thank you,
Tamsin.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thanks for letting me know. Let me know if that happens again.
Excellent.
I will. So I've got my little graphic here, and what I can even do is basically, let me just show you this. I'll copy and I will paste in place. Because I can use this wonderful image effects thing I've talked about a few times, I can even make like a grayscale one. Okay, so let's right click and duplicate that class. Let's edit the name and let's call this render gray. And then finally just pop that onto the object. So now this is really fantastic. What I've basically got is a lovely looking symbol with 3 levels, a colored version, a grayed version, and just a 2D graphic version and a 3D version. So I hope you like that little tip. This is something that I've done quite a lot of. And if I go to my 3D libraries, let's have a quick look in here. You see I've got some really nice, yeah, I got a bit carried away with benches. I'm doing sort of a pack of benches, chairs and things like that I've done as well. you know, you always need chairs. The one thing I always find I need is nice sofas as well, or things like storage. So if I right click and just open that file for a second, just take a second, you'll see this is a great way for you to build your libraries. And, you know, these are all really nicely sort of imported sort of storage libraries, I guess. Let's have a quick look at the design layer. I'll take a second to render because they're all 3D. There we go. So they look nice in 3D, but when you look at them in top view, they just look really nice and simple. Just let that re-update a second. There we go. So there's my top view. And all I need to do is just still rendering as well with the caching. If I want to, I can turn on the graphic. Let's tick that one, turn off the render mode, and I just get, you know, what look like normal symbols. If I'm doing more of a presentation drawing for a client and I want something a bit more graphical, I can turn those on as well. And I've got the 3D model behind it. So, you know, with my workflow, I often just do everything in 3D. I'm working with these what feel like 2D objects, but actually, you know, I know that they're all set up for 3D. So I hope that you enjoyed that tip on hybrid 2D stroke 3D symbols. Fantastic. Any more relevant questions, Tamsin? Or if not, I'm going to crack on to walls, slabs and roofs, I think, next. I think we'll crack on. Okay, good. So the final sort of big element I really wanted to talk about is...
Sorry, Jonathan, I was muted.
Sorry. Shall I keep going?
Let me just see. There's a couple that have popped in.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes. I'll just say this to everyone. The webinar is being recorded and it will be available to watch again. So there's no need to ask. That's done. And
Very
there's
good.
someone asking, I haven't seen the detail, but the gist of the question is, can I suggest an add-on for Vectorworks 2021? And without reading the rest of it, the answer to the question is, no, it's too late. So, but we'll certainly take what you want into consideration for future releases. Yes,
absolutely, brilliant. Okay, now all of this stuff is great for, you know, your furniture libraries and image libraries and sort of, you know, the usual day-to-day libraries. For me, one of the most important aspects of Vectorworks is using a 3D BIM workflow. So in a minute, I'm going to show you a project, but I want to kind of show you kind of where I get started. So what I've done here is I've made my own walls library, and this is something that I would encourage every business, every practice to do. I mean, if you're a landscape architect, maybe not walls, but plants and so on. So you can see I'm not going to claim to have made them all from scratch. I borrowed them from the Vectorworks ones, but I've done a couple of cool things that for me, works really well. So let me just open these up and I'll show you what I've done. I'll click open and it will take a while because there's quite a lot of walls in here. One thing that, you know, I quite like using Uniclass to a point, but for me as a small practice, and I hear this from a lot of smaller practices, it maybe can be a bit overkill if you're not doing a full BIM implementation workflow. So what I've actually done is I've used the wonderful batch convert command, and I've basically removed a lot of the, you know, the classification data of Uniclass, and I've just left A for architect, which keeps it nice and organized, and really the last kind of word. So if I did want to, I could clearly put that back into a full Uniclass system by, you know, mapping the classes at some point, and that's not a problem. If I go to my wall types, you'll see, again, I've used that similar approach where I've basically just got a Vectorworks file with them hopefully quite nicely arranged and labeled. And, you know, what's nice is I can either kind of get them from the resource manager when I need to use them, or I can just pop into this file, have a quick look around. More importantly, I can spin around. That's one thing I can't do in the resource manager, is actually spin around and sort of gauge which build-up it actually is. And again, when I'm starting a project, I can go in, select these particular wall types that I might need for the project. Let's say I need this one, and I need a few generic ones, and this one. Let's go for that crazy green one, and some timber cladding. And I'll copy them, and let's go to one of my untitled files. There we go. Oh, that was the benches one that I was doing. Let's go to this one. And And basically this is an alternative to having to drag and drop them in, which I find quite a nice way to work. So as soon as watch my classes here, okay, there's a few text classes, but as soon as I click and I paste in those walls, again, it will bring through the relevant classes, which is nice. Obviously the walls are all in there, so I can basically, if I want to, just quickly, align and distribute them. And sometimes I just kind of leave them off the page until I don't need them anymore and I delete them, but I can use them to eyedrop too. But finally, it's just a really nice approach in that it's brought through my wall styles into that file. So just a different sort of way of looking at them, really, having them in their own Vectorworks file and looking at them. And then I think the other nice thing that I've done is added my own lovely textures rather than the native ones. And I've simplified the uniclass structure a bit, but probably still retaining the benefit of uniclass if required. And then when I'm doing a project, all I really need to do is right click and edit the design layer to give that maybe a floor to floor height. And because I know all the walls are set up correctly using layer bounded settings, they just pop up and off they go. And it's really cool. If I want to, I can use my eyedropper tool to eyedrop from there and just sort of swap out different wall types and different constructions. So when I first start projects, in fact, I'll show you a real project if I may. So have a quick look. I've got one in the background here. Just show this one. And this is really an exact example of how I use all these resources on a project. So this is just one that's on the drawing board at the moment, should we say? The drawing board. Who remembers drawing boards? Okay. So if I go to the project, I've got some saved views. I'll just show you really. I tend to model, even from survey stage, the existing building in 3D. And I'm using the wall tool, the roof tool, doors and windows. That's pretty much it. And a few, I don't think there's really any custom modeling here at all. So it's quite an interesting house. In fact, that is the proposed model. So you can see using save views, I'll just show you the existing and proposed. Let's go to existing. I know what I did. I basically turned on the wrong layer. Proposed. That's it. So here's the existing, all these existing layers here. Just strip that back, existing, existing, and existing. Yeah, there we go. There's the existing. And you've already seen the proposed. What's nice is using my save views, I can kind of really quickly set something up for the client. What's cool is if I do want to, I can do Command R. Let's say I wanted to try out the timber cladding. I could click onto this wall here in the drawing. Let's just make that the active layer. So I just need to go down to this layer here. I could use my wand tool and select similar walls. So I can select all those rendered walls there. And which one do we want to do? I think that is the wood cladding one. So I'll apply. Do remind me not to save this. I don't think the client will be too pleased. To replace this very generic wall with a different type of wall build-up. And I can swap these around quite rapidly as I'm doing a project. So it's going to take a second just to update. Yeah, there we go. So I actually quite like it. It's quite interesting. I might need to reset some of the heights and that sort of thing, but you can see how rapid that is. So I'm just going to undo that one quickly. So I use this an awful lot. I start off with these very basic, generic sort of bearing walls and interior walls. And as I develop the project past planning, I add the detail for building regs and that kind of thing. Now you can see right at the beginning of the project, I'm a real fan of putting in, some furniture. And I just do it all in 3D as well. Just set that ceiling there so you can see what's going on in there using the visibility tool. And you can see there's some great sort of things like interior design furniture, and these are all available from this furniture palette. Things like the kitchen units, these are all parametric. So, yeah, I quite like just having a first sort of stab for the client on what that sort of space might look like. And the beauty with that is even at the very, very initial client meeting, you can actually kind of get the client inside the building and sort of wow them really, and sort of give them a walk around. You know, it really isn't any more effort than putting some rectangles on a plan. All you're doing is using a piece of furniture that has a 2D and a 3D element to it. And not, you know, not super high quality sort of twin motion level. They're just kind of in there just to give me an impression of the space. So hopefully that kind of shows you my workflow for things like walls as well. So I think the key to this is, we close this file down, is as you do projects, let's close that down without saving. What you really want to do is create your own walls libraries and slab libraries and things like roof libraries as well. And then the great thing is you can kind of like just, you know, store them in one place. So you don't have to, so if I double click here, I've got a sections file set up. So you don't have to remember which project you last did it in. And if there's more than one of you in a practice, it's a bit of a waste of time you creating a wall type that your colleague did last week. But the thing is, if you don't know whether they did it or not, you'll have to kind of recreate it from scratch. So if a practice has a user library or workgroup library, or even some favorites set up on a Dropbox system, that will do. You know where to look, and if it's there, you just use it. So that's a great tip I would give you. One other really nice little tip I just want to show you on the wall types. And what's really cool about these is we have level of detail function. So this icon here is called auto display level of detail. So all I need to do is click onto this, and you'll see that it just blacks out or grays out the wall types. And then, you know, when I'm sort of post planning into building regs, I can click and basically turn on the detail in the wall. So I quite like to use what I think is going to be the closest type of wall to the actual construction. A, it saves me time when I do my building regs, but secondly, I'm confident that the rooms aren't going to get smaller or the building bigger, you know, because I've used the correct build up. So I hope you find that kind of quite a useful function. And you can do that in a viewport as well. Excellent. Okay, good. So we're doing quite.
It's such, you know, saving time, and yeah, you may not need to submit all of that detail straight away, but there's no reason why it can't be included. It's no extra work to do it, and it's actually saving you work down the line.
That's it, Tamsin, absolutely. So, you know, I'm really pleased now. I've managed to kind of create this for walls, slabs, and roofs so far. And they're great. So I can really use these again and again, you know, slate roofs, zinc roofs, all the kind of roofs that I like using as an architect. So that's where I am on the BIM side of things. And then one more thing that I just want to touch on before we let Tamsin talk a little bit more about object styles is detail libraries. So this is I suppose the other end of the scale. You know, once you get onto your building regs drawings and construction drawings, you might want to actually get onto detailing. So when architects do details, they take forever. Okay, and you might spend absolutely hours and hours creating or sourcing or, you know, drawing a detail of a beam and block floor. The great thing is, once you've drawn it once, you generally don't have to draw it too many times. So here I've got my details. So I'm just going to drag and drop some details in for this particular project. And you can see they're all coming in as sort of fully fledged details. So what's really nice is I can kind of choose, again, you know, what is maybe the nearest form of construction. Often I'll have to do a little bit of tweaking, and all they are is groups. So you say, how are groups being displayed in here? And do you notice that these are blue symbols? Okay, well, the magic trick here is these aren't actually symbols at all. And if you hover over them, it will tell you what they are. They're 2D groups. So this is a really good tip for either apartment types or house types or anything that you want to bring in and change. Let me show you how I've created this file. Now you can see I've done this for quite a lot. In fact, some really nice wall details. The other thing that I just want to show you was the tagging. So when I search, when I'm in a, you know, I could be deep in a project here and think I need a detail. If I just type in JRA walls, hit return, it should search, hopefully, my walls library and maybe some details for details of walls. There we go, it's searched some details here. JRA wall details. So I perhaps could have typed in wall rather than walls and detail to get the appropriate filter. Let's give one more search. And this makes it nice and rapid to find. So as a business, you know, as a practice, it's a really, really important thing to develop some detail libraries, I would say, for your sort of construction details. I'm not to say they're fixed in time. So what we do, let me go onto this file here. This is one that I have yet to do. You can see there's no symbols in it. So let me show you how to do it. I'll right click and open the file. These are raw details that have been copied and pasted and some imported from the web and various sources. So they've yet to be processed. Let's take this sort of typical internal bearing detail here. So this is the process. I'm going to right click, I'm just going to copy the text there. What I'm going to do is select all of the information. I'm going to right click, create a symbol, and I'm going to paste in the name. But the real trick here is don't just leave it as a normal symbol, convert it to a group. You tick convert to group. And by the way, you can also put it into a class as well, an appropriate class. So what that does, it makes it into a group rather than a symbol, and it makes it into a blue, well, I'm going to say symbol, a blue group, which means it's sort of like it's a group temporarily. Sorry, it's like a symbol just for the purposes of being in here. But as soon as I drag it into the drawing, it's grouped. So I don't mind ungrouping it and changing it. Because what I find is with symbols, people are reluctant to change them because they feel like it might change something in another file or change something in the library. Whereas a group, you know, nobody cares and everybody's happy to change a group and start to amend the detail as required. So what do you think, guys? Do you think that's a nice solution for your details? I found this extremely useful over time, and you know, when I do a building regs package now, the benefit, the investment that I've put in saves me a ton of time. So that's what it's all about. It's all about efficiency.
Agree.
Yeah.
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 And I think often, you know, when you look at what the wall tool and the window and the door tool are capable of, there's so much detail they can pack in, but really when you're looking at a BIM model, you're looking at a level of 1 to 50 detail, and then the rest is annotation. So to have these pre-prepared annotations that you can just drop in is just such a time saver.
Absolutely, Tamsin, totally agree. You know, your first goal for BIM modeling really ought to be 1 to 50 level. Not to say that you can't go beyond that, maybe to 1 to 20, and you can theoretically model damp-proof courses and wall ties, but there's no point. You model to 1 to 50, and then, you know, either you annotate the detail in the right place in the annotations layer, or another strategy is just put a bubble on and then refer to another sheet where you've actually got the actual detail drawn up beautifully. Because, you know, the way you draw architectural details is different to how you would make a BIM model. You would never put this level of detail in an actual BIM model. And in fact, none of the BIM systems work in that way at all. So yeah, this is a very good strategy, I think. Excellent. Okay, good. Well, the last thing I'm just going to touch on, then I'm going to hand over to Tamsin for a moment, is using object styles. Now, for those of you who haven't used object styles, basically object styles are, let's see where have I stored it away. It's in my doors, I think. Let's have a look in here. Let's have a look. JRA. If in doubt, I should use search. Let's try JRA door, see if anything pops up. Hopefully it will. Oh, there it is. I can see it now. Door styles. Good. Okay, so this file here, just start a new blank file, is the beginnings of a new file I'm just creating for door styles or door style objects. And again, I'm finding that the door styles and things like window styles are a massive time saver because what they bring you is sort of all the benefits of a symbol with the benefits of parametrics, a bit of a combination. So let me see if I can sort of explain how this works. In fact, let me right click and open this file. So basically, when you create a styled object, you have the option to say everything about that style is set in the style itself. Okay, so for example, let's take a door like this. At the moment, this is unstyled. It's just a plug-in door. So I can do all the usual things in settings. But let's say I want to use this door, you know, 100 times around a massive mansion. I really ought to be making I love this catchy phrase, Tamsin. a styled object. Do you love that?
A new plugin styled object. Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue.
Rolls off the tongue. New plugin style from unstyled plugin. Yeah. Let's call this door style 5. Now, what we can do here is we can say, look, everything about this door is going to be the same on all the doors, apart from maybe the width. I might want a different width, a different height, and actually I might want a different opening style. Maybe I even want a different type of leaf. Okay, let's just unlock those at least. I guess if you go too far, then you're actually thinking to yourself, this is actually a different type of door rather than the same door style. But the benefit is now I can duplicate that door. And what you're going to see is if I scroll down, a lot of the things are grayed out. So that means I can't edit them, and that's because they're all via style. So if I edit something that is in the style, I go edit style. This is going into all of the doors. Okay, so let's have a look what we can change in here. Let's have a look. So, okay, well, let's change the bottom rail width to something much bigger. Let's say 500 mil. So when I click OK, that, because it's by style, that will do it on both objects. Okay. However, the bits that aren't grayed out, I'm free to change. So if I want to, I can change the width, and I can even change the type of door. So this is the benefit. You sort of straddles the line between symbols, where you change one, they all change, and a parametric where you've got the flexibility to be able to do what you want to do. So yeah, I love the styles. I'm really getting into them now, Tamsin. They're great. So I will now hand over to
They are so
Tamsin
useful.
to just talk a moment a bit more about how you can kind of set up the parametric and object libraries for, well, probably working in groups rather than sort of individually. Is that okay, Tamsin?
Yeah, that's great. Yes, so let me just grab the controls. I must
Thank you.
in advance apologise if there is any background noise. The GigaClear people are here. Currently drilling through the front wall of the house to bring fibre to the house. How
Oh,
exciting is
lucky you.
that? And
Oh,
I'm at the back of the house, but our neighbour's cockerel has just decided now is a really good time to start singing
oh,
loudly to the
yeah,
neighbourhood.
but
So apologies in advance for that, but this is life working from home. So I'm going to
yeah,
just change the presenter to me
fantastic. I'll
and
come back with some
switch
questions in a
over
moment to
and
finish off.
okay, please do. And I'm going to show my screen. Great. So you should now be able to see a Vectorworks screen,
I'll mute
which
myself,
is
Tamsin.
marvelous. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, but feel free to chip in anytime, Jonathan. So just taking what all that excellent information Jonathan has given us about what you can do with all these things. One of the things that I've often found, as I said at the beginning, is that people are kind of overthinking and finding this whole structure of the library is quite scary. So it's so easy to find. Essentially, a library is just a Vectorworks file. It's just a Vectorworks file that has stuff in it, and it's just stored in a folder which is on your hard drive, just like any other file on your computer. And it's a question of understanding where those library files are. Now, when you install Vectorworks, if you're on a Mac, it'll go into the applications folder. So all of those standard libraries will go into the applications folder. But there is also something called your user folder. And on a Mac, it's under Library, Applications Support, Vectorworks, and then the version of Vectorworks, and then there's this folder structure there. And that's what you see when you're looking at the resource manager. You will see a combination of what's under the applications folder and any customizations that are stored here. So anything that you change or update, or when you save links to favorites, those links are stored in this structure here. So that's worth knowing. And just to preempt the question of where would I find it on a PC, and how will I remember where that is? It's really easy. I've got a screenshot here, but I'll show you. If I go into Tools, Options, Vectorworks Preferences, and click the User Folder tab, it will show you a link to your user folder, and also has a button on the Mac which says Reveal in Finder, and I think on PC it says something Explore, but it will take you straight there. So click that, it will open up my Finder and take me straight to where all my customizations are stored. And what we'll see, if I just cancel that and go back into Vectorworks, is within the user folder, there is an object styles folder. And the object styles folder is also replicated. You can see here, this folder tree here, I can see that on my resource manager. So let's just open up the resource manager and you'll see that there. So I've got object styles as a folder. And the beauty of this folder structure is that for most things that use styles, not everything uses styles yet, but we're getting there, is that there is one folder for every tool. And so it is worth storing those styles in under that object style structure. And here's why. Again, there's a screenshot here, but I can show you for real. In this case, I've opened up the data tag folder and I've gone to the door file here just by opening my resource manager. But here, I've actually clicked the data tag tool, and let me do that for real. I click data tag, and up here on the tool options, the toolbar for that tool, there is a pop-up menu which would open up a mini version of the resource manager, but it's filtered out anything that is nothing that doesn't relate to this tool. So it's a really, really quick way to find things. So if I want to use my data tag, and I've picked data tag because it's one of my fave tools of the moment. You can tag anything. It is the future of tagging within Vectorworks. And I want to tag some doors, I can go in here and there's a ton of examples. So I can just load those styles straight into the tool. If I select that now, effectively I have set the property. It's not going to let me do it because there's no doors here, but I've set the properties for that tag by just loading that style. And because it was under that object style structure, the tool knows exactly where to look for it. Now, if I had that in my favorites, I could still get to it because I can still see my favorites, but I would still have to know which file to go to within the favorites and where to find it. Whereas if you store styles under the relevant object style folder structure, then your tools will be able to see them. And I don't know which industry we have. We've got probably a variety of industries here where, so all different tools relate here, but it just means that you've got your access to your library directly from the tool. You don't have to even go and hunt for things. So that's one of my top tips on where to store your resources. The other thing that's relevant here, and there was a question about this earlier, which I just answered by typing. Somebody asked, what happens if you set up your libraries and then you upgrade? And that's a really good point. Everything that is in your user folder potentially could be lost, but we've thought of that. And when you first install your next version of Vectorworks, it will actually prompt you to convert your user folder. So everything that's in this customized area on your hard drive will be converted forward. But, and I say this from the experience of working in tech support many days, many people, when they first run the installer, will answer no to that question without really realizing what they're answering. So underneath the tools menu, we have this fantastic resource here, which will migrate your workspace preferences, templates, favorites, and library content from the previous version into the new version. And then you'll end up with a new user folder with the version number of the version that you're using. So obviously I probably shouldn't even be showing this, but you can just about see I've got 2018, 2019, 2020, and then something called 2021, which seems to be on my hard drive as well. I wonder how that got there. So you'll have a user folder for each version, but yes, it just gets migrated forward. So I can't stress enough, don't be afraid of this, explore this user folder, understand how Vectorworks is storing your files, and then I think that will demystify the way things appear when you look at them in the resource manager, because it's just the same really with a prettier interface. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, just to finish off, was the idea of sharing content. So having set up all your beautiful libraries, then if you are working as part of a team, you really want everyone to be using the same content. You don't want people in the team to be duplicating effort, or even potentially thinking, I don't like the way my pal draws windows, I'm going to draw mine differently. You ideally want some pre-selected content for a specific project. And this is something that's used a lot in BIM projects. There will be a content manager for the BIM project, and they will be responsible for producing or overseeing the production of content, and things that Jonathan has just shown, like object styles, where you are determining what your team are able to change and what they shouldn't be able to change. So first of all, you create your object styles, but then you can use this area on your Vectorworks preferences to set up workgroup and project folders. And that will then provide access to that additional content directly from here. So it's so easy to do. The first step is to just create an empty folder, and typically this would be on a shared server or a shared drive, or even in the cloud potentially. So you create just an empty folder, and then I've created one already, which is just a blank folder. So I'll just go into my preferences, and I'm just going to click add, and I've put it in my documents folder, but obviously it would be on a server. And here it is. Now it's actually, no, I'm going to make a new folder. Let's do that, and let's create it at that level. My project stuff, let's call it. So it is completely empty, and I'm going to select that as my shared folder. And you can see it's brought that in. And when I click OK, if we now go to the Finder, and I'm going to go to my documents, if I can see them. Here we go, documents, and there's my project stuff. And Vectorworks has automatically created the same folder structure for me, so I can start to build my own shared object styles in that shared folder. And obviously, as I say, I've put it on my documents folder, but that would be on a shared device that everyone has access to in the team. And then you can actually create multiple project folders. If you've got teams of people working on a specific project, you would give them access to just the project folder that has the content for that project. They can then switch project folder if they're moving on to a different one. So you'd have all your doors and windows determined, slab styles, your wall styles, etc. So that is really all I wanted to say on that subject. I hope, are there any questions on that? Let's have a quick look at the question
Thank you,
panel.
Tamsin. That's very well explained. Excellent. That's very helpful.
But just don't be scared of it. Just don't be scared of it. It's just files in folders, and files have just got really useful stuff in them. But that's all it is.
You know, and I think the biggest tip is when you know you're doing something that you've already done before at some point in your life, maybe after about the third time and thinking, yeah, I've done this before a few times, start to think about how you can kind of make that workflow a bit more efficient. And it kind of rolls onto lots of things in life, let's say, but you know, even as simple as making signatures for your emails, that's another sort of template type thing, or having a good Vectorworks template developed so that when you start a project, you've already kind of well ahead with layers and classes and sheets and title blocks, that sort of thing. So for me, having symbols and libraries and well-organized resources is a very essential part of a workflow, and definitely will bring a big benefit, I would say, for sure. Can I take control back then, Tamsin, just to finish off with some questions? Is that okay?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Are you going
Let me just go back.
hand back?
I'm handing back.
Thank
there
you.
You are.
Excellent. Good. So we have some questions, if there's any, if we haven't answered them already. So yeah, let's see if we've got any. I've noticed a couple of questions. We do have a little sneaky question about, can we see version Vectorworks 2021? I think the answer to that is, if you go on to the Teaser Tuesdays channel, or look at my or Vectorworks' LinkedIn or Twitter, you can actually, you'll see some fantastic highlighted features, the ones that we're able to talk about on the 3D modeling. That's right, Tamsin, isn't it? Teaser Tuesdays. There was a nice sort of new 3D modeling feature teased yesterday. Hello? Tamsin's disappeared for a second. So
No,
let's have a
I'm
look.
there. So yes, Teaser Tuesdays are there, and
Yeah.
we can't say any more than that. But I can say some cool stuff, and obviously, if I did show you, I'd have to be shot. So that would be really not very nice.
Check out my Twitter feed. I reposted the video this morning. I've watched it a few times. It's fantastic. All I'll say is modeling like you do in SketchUp in Vectorworks. I mean, SketchUp is a great modeler, don't get me wrong, but Vectorworks has a lot of sophisticated 3D tools. And now with this new feature, I think, you know, more and more we're finding people moving to Vectorworks for their modeling, which is a great thing in my view. So yeah, do check that out for your teaser feature.
Okay. And there's a question here from Gavin, actually, regarding where's the best way to store drawing templates within a work group. So coming back to, do you remember when I showed you on my Finder, it had exactly the same folder structure as if it was a single user. And within that folder structure, there will be a defaults template. So there's a libraries defaults templates folder. So just put them in there and then everyone will have access to them.
Correct. That's it. You know, a lot more and more people working on Dropbox systems now as well. And there's no reason why I can't store things like libraries and symbols on the Dropbox. I do it with my colleague. We've been working like this for months. So yeah, that works fine. Okay. Good. Well, I think unless is there any more questions coming in? It looks like everybody hopefully has asked most of the questions they wanted. I mean, I'll just finish off by mentioning you're more than welcome to have a quick look at some of the libraries I've developed myself. And do check out the Vectorworks content and definitely make the most of the Vectorworks Service Select content as well. And really, you know, I would encourage you just to kind of really push your use of the resource manager. If you're not using it every day when you're using Vectorworks, then well, probably you probably ought to be. So I would hope that it's been, you know, a little bit enlightening for some of you in terms of actually using your libraries a bit more efficiently. So unless there's any more questions, Tamsin.
The other thing I would say is, you know, if there is content that you specifically want, just let us know. We do have a dedicated content team. That's all they do, make content. You know, we can't guarantee it happen straight away. Also, sometimes if there isn't content that's from a specific manufacturer, it's not just down to us. It might be down to the manufacturer themselves, because we would have to have their agreement to model up their stuff and use their name.
I mean,
it's not just down to the fact that we haven't done it.
We didn't really mention the BIM object tool today. The BIM object is a different sort of form altogether. These are much more detailed and much more sort of, you know, but these are online available, and a lot of manufacturers do have their objects in here. They're a little bit different because they're highly detailed. So I tend to avoid using those at early design stage. I'm not logged in at the moment, as you can see, but check out the BIM object site if you need some very specific object. But, you know, you can nearly always import it in one form or another. I go to SketchUp quite frequently, but it might be a 3D file or a Rhino file, that kind of thing. So there's some really, you know, really great resources that you can bring into Vectorworks and make into your files. I mean, you know, I don't think I've explained the M texture or the MOSA pattern today. I was hoping to do that. There's still more. Maybe another webinar, Tamsin, next month. But I hope you've all enjoyed.
Well, actually, I am doing, for those who are Vectorworks Service Select members, I am doing a session on the MOSA pattern generator on Friday the 28th of August in the afternoon. So, and it's so cool. It's so cool.
It is very cool, as is the M textures for creating sort of, you know, real world materials and textures. Good. Well, should we wrap up, Tamsin? Is that time? I think everyone's getting hungry now.
Yes, yes, definitely. And it's time for another cup of tea. Definitely.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Okay. Bye for now.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Keep in touch. Stay well. Bye-bye.